Hello Internet! With the release of Sunday, the meta has seen, well, honestly, not that big of a change. A lot of people are saying Sunday is a character for the future, but in version 3.0, we might be seeing a lot more summon-based characters. And today, because I'm uncreative, let's react to the tier list Printwin has done. And with the addition of Sunday, what does the tier list look like now? Oh, there you go. We got Sunday being tier 0.5. And this is my first time taking a look at the tier list for this version, so this will be my raw reaction, and then, we'll discuss and stuff. To take a look at tier 0, it's mostly the same thing, except for Linkshot that is now being promoted to tier 0 as well. And not only that, in MOC Perfection and Apocalyptic Shadow, she's all tier 0. This thing is the premium sustainer. And yeah, what can I say? Gallagher was already really good before in every mode, and now that we have Linkshot, which is a slightly better and different Gallagher, she's certainly pretty strong. Not to mention every single MOC stage and pretty much every single mode right now are all somewhat skewed towards a break team. But for most people that run a Firefly Run May team, if you don't have a Gallagher, you're putting Linkshot on there, and you're gonna take zero effort to beat everything. She heals a bunch, she cleanses even more than Gallagher, she even has good offensive capabilities, helping you break stuff, setting your Firefly up to do a bunch of damage on weakness broken enemies. Truly an underdog character that a lot of people skip, but yeah, she's pretty good though. And that'll be all for tier 0. Honestly, it's mostly still the same thing. We see the same, double harmony, and what's surprising would be tier 0.5, but where we see, shockingly, Sunday, a new harmony character, not being tier 0. This is a first, I believe. I think every single limited harmony character that's been released are all tier 0, or at least at the start they'd be tier 0, right? But for the first time ever, Sunday hasn't started at tier 0, and I would say there's a pretty convincing reason. While Sunday's really good with Jingyuan, his performance with everyone else isn't as incredible. It's not to say he's bad, he's very strong still with pretty much every other character. Let's say if you use Yunli with Robin versus using Yunli with Sunday, you can see the difference being with Robin, your damage is just higher, while with Sunday, you do more ultimates. While each have their pros and cons, in the end, I do believe Robin will still take the cake as the better support for Yunli because of just how much more damage you do with Robin. Only slightly though. However, if we compare everyone's ideal setup, Sunday's best setup currently will be with Jingyuan, while Robin's best setup currently will be with Fei Xiao. And a Fei Xiao team with Robin would still outperform a Sunday team with Jingyuan is what I believe. While Jingyuan is able to do a lot more damage now, dude, Fei Xiao dunking 500k every other turn is just insane as well. So I'm not sure about this one. I feel like it's fair to put him at tier 0.5 right now. In the future, I'm almost guaranteeing he'll go up, but I'm also in the position where maybe I would put him honestly at the same rank at tier 0, maybe in the lower tier 0s, but considering his versatility and his best setups being quite strong, I guess you could still put him here, but me personally, I would put him low tier 0 though. This might be controversial, but I certainly don't think his best setup can outperform Robin or Ron May's best setup, so yeah, not too ridiculous of a ranking. And moving up next, we have the sustain slot with a little bit of a surprising, change. We have Woho dropping from tier 0 to now tier 0.5. Woho was the queen of sustain since forever. She has constant cleansing, really good healing. The only thing bad about her would be, she needs skill points. Sometimes you have to save it for her, but she also gains you energy. She gains you some buffs as well. There's nothing really bad about Woho ever. I would still put her at tier 0 because I still use her almost every single MOC, even till today. However, considering MOC is certainly skewed towards weakness breaking or full-up attacking right now, perhaps Woho is not as insane as someone like Fu Yuan with Linkshot that has both follow-up attacks and breaking abilities. But putting her in tier 0.5 isn't too ridiculous either. And that will be the Apex characters. Moving on, we have the meta characters. And we pretty much see everyone around the same slot except for tier 1. We have Dr. Ratio being dropped from tier 0.5 to tier 1 now. And I can tell, yeah, this is kind of obvious. MOC 12 currently, especially for the second side, although they have imaginary weakness, you pretty much cannot win against that using only single target DPSs, or you'll have a hard time at least. So for a single target specialist like Dr. Ratio, you will certainly have some issues with him in the current MOC. Where it against help weakness breaking, so AoE or multi-target DPS that can weakness break will have an upper hand. I don't think that's that big a deal though. You can still certainly use him, I think. But what is truly surprising here is Jingyuan going up 2 tiers, I believe. This should be 2 tiers. Yeah, look at him now. Tier 1 MOC, tier 0 in Perfection, tier 0.5 in Apocalyptic Shadow. Be careful who you said is useless in version 1, man. But yeah, with the release of Sunday, Jingyuan certainly has become a really strong DPS. I almost would put him at tier 0.5 if we just consider using him with Sunday, because his numbers is truly comparable to even Acheron. While it is comparable, I still do think Acheron is better though. Her damage is just not okay, man. So yeah, with that said, tier 1 is also acceptable for me. What a rise that Jingyuan has gotten, huh? Ever since version 1, he's only been getting like indirect buffs. We got freaking follow attack supports with Robin, and now we get Sunday, the ultimate summon support. You'll certainly have a good use for Jingyuan if you have him built in today's meta. And for the rest of the tiers, we see the usual suspects of, Dill being tier 1 DPS. We have a bunch of 4 stars with Rappa, which isn't even that strong in MOC, but because this week really supports Rappa, she is still tier 1. But yeah, she's tier 0 and tier 0.5 everywhere else though, so a pretty strong DPS still. Yeah, for the case of everyone else, it's the usual stuff. Nothing much have changed with them, and that'll be for tier 1. Tier 1.5, we see the same suspects. And yeah, nothing much to say. I would say Blade this week will see more use. However, though, he's still suffering from like being slower in terms of doing damage, where you need the enemy to hit him as well. He'll be decently strong against like the Svarog side, but nothing outside of that though. We also see the Dot duo being pretty much never helped. Who knows, maybe version 3 will get a Dot support that just make them rise again. But for now though, they're in the back burner. And moving on to tier 2, we do see some interesting changes with Jingliu being dropped a rank. I will actually say Jingliu plus Sunday is actually a pretty solid team, but for the fact that in MOC 12 right now there's no ice weakness, I can see why Jingliu is still not going to be used too much. She is certainly helped a bit by Sunday though. I've used that before, and it's not that bad if the enemy has ice weakness. And that is the problem with Honkai Star's tier list, to be honest. In some weeks, some characters are just so much worse because they don't have that certain weakness, right? And Jingliu definitely fits the bill for that description. During weeks where there's ice weakness, she will fly in terms of usage rate, but it's been so long since we ever had a case like that, and whenever we do, it's usually the single target merchant Aventry where you don't even want to use Jingliu too much. So yep, I already made a video on why Jingliu is not really used, and yeah, who knows if we'll see the return of the grandma someday. And for the rest of tier 2, the only change that we ever have would be with Lynx, which dropped the rank. I'm gonna be very honest, I straight up do not care. I don't think I know a single person that still uses Lynx or Japard. For the people who do though, yeah, Lynx is certainly not as strong because there's just so much more debuff infliction with every MOC stage that Lynx's cleansing with only her ult may not be sufficient. Not to mention her healing isn't the highest ever. I mean, it's a free 4-shot. What can you expect, right? And then we have Japard, a standard character. And that will be for the meta characters that are still decently strong. And moving on, we do have the niche character, is where I'm kind of surprised a little bit. In tier 3, we see a ranking drop for QQ and Sela. Now, obviously, there's no quantum weakness with any enemies in MOC 12, so yeah, they do see, less plays if that's the case. Especially in the second side, using Sela there is gonna be a hellish experience, man. But yeah, this directly shows you a very obvious form of power creep we have, although I think it is fine because Sela is a version 1, like legit 1.0 character, the first banner we ever had. She has maintained high rankings for a while, and now, after basically a whole year, she's now considered a niche character. DPS characters in general usually are the most like easily power prep characters, and Sela has fallen victim of that. It's kind of sad to see, but the game is a business after all. If they just release subpar characters every time so that older characters wouldn't get power creep, then no one would ever need to pull anyone, right? So yes, power creep really does exist. For some characters, you cannot use them. For some others that are old, like say Bronya or Tingyan, they're still fairly strong. You can't just expect no power creep at all, right? It's gonna happen one way or another. And for this version, the power creep has caught up to Sela really hard. For the rest of this tier though, I would say the only person I would talk about would probably be Welt. Dude, Welt is cracked this week, okay? I made a video on it, but yes, Welt can just get you a free win for the second side. Unlimited ultimates, man. It is so strong. It takes like 4 cycles for you to do it, I believe, with no sustains. Using Acheron plus Welt, you just like infinitely delay second side. Man, he be tier 0 this week, dude. But yeah, truthfully speaking though, outside of that, he really isn't too strong at all. The damage he does, especially not at E6, is really not impressive. Pritwin has ranked this at E0 as 0, which is terrible. He doesn't even get enough like energy without E2, but still, dude, this week's second side, use your Welt, guys. Build them up. It's so good. However though, considering everyone has like a Firefly break team or a face shell follow-up team, someone like a standard Welt is just not really a needed character outside of just entertainment. So yeah, I can see why he's niche. And that'll be tier 3. For tier 4 though, it's about the same usual suspects as the older 4-star characters, which is kind of an issue in Star Rail. The new 4-stars are still somewhat relevant with a couple of, standard 4-stars, but these 4-stars are really old certainly does not see any use anymore, which I suppose it makes sense. You can't just have everyone be usable at the same time. But yeah, these characters though are probably characters you wouldn't need to build or want to build. At least for right now, right? But if you're newer though, you should get them up because you don't have other choice. So moving on, we have the Forgotten Ones. It's the same thing pretty much, with the only change being Misha being tier 5 across the board. Even at E6 or T5, man. If I am simply put no ice weakness, then Misha is gonna just struggle. That's it. That's the problem with these hardcore element-based DPSs. The top tier DPSs all have gimmicks to ignore weaknesses, so you always have an out and still break the boss if you need to. But with the older characters, you generally see like just hard element-based DPS, where if the elements are changing, their tier will drop because you just can't use them against those characters. Or if you do, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. And Misha fits that description. Not to mention in MOC 12, the second side's entire gimmick is for you to weakness break them. Misha cannot do that, and he cannot do like, hyper AoE damage. He's more a single target guy. So for that, you would probably not build Misha at all. Hence, he's a forgotten one. Same with every other character here. My guy Yanqing will never escape this rank, man. And yep, that'll be all for the tier list. I think it's not that inaccurate at all. I could be totally wrong. Let me know what you think. But in the end, do remember, these are all just my opinion. Feel free to share yours, but don't insult my face or something. But yeah, the takeaway here would be that Sunday is truthfully the wild card right now. We never know if he's gonna get better or worse. I feel like it's guaranteed with version 3 he'll get better though. But for now though, he's genuinely not the tier 0 character based on crit wit, which is fair to say. Yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. That'll be all for today's Yap video, and take care.